Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. The 2 o'clock this morning, or thereabouts, I woke up, as I often do in the middle of the night. And the way that I typically put myself back to sleep is by listening to the BBC. There's something about dry British voices and thoughtful, complex news analysis that makes my brain work hard enough that it just finally says, enough, I'm going to sleep. And so typically, I put up the BBC NewsHour on, and within 10, 15 minutes of it, I'm asleep at the worst, maybe 20 minutes. And done that for years and years. So anyhow, I was just astonished this morning at 2 a.m. when I heard this. It wasn't actually a real-time debate. The BBC had gone out and interviewed Jesse Jackson about the shooting in South Carolina, about Walter Scott's murder. And then they interviewed a police officer, a 40-year veteran of the New York City Police Department, who's now a consultant to police departments around the country, and basically a guy who speaks on behalf of cops. And what I heard was so astonishing, so provocative. I wanted to share bits and pieces of it with you and begin this conversation. If you are black in this country, did you grow up in a terrorist state, in a state that is, well, actually, let me play these clips. You listen to Jesse Jackson and notice he's saying things like state execution, pattern of terror. I think he's absolutely nailed this. And again, this, just like white privilege, I think most white people never even think in these terms, much less are able to understand these terms. But here's Jackson.
This is another state execution, an act of terrorism, and it is a pattern that we must not adjust to. It's Diallo in New York shot 41 times in his doorway and killed. Eric Garner choked to death on the video in New York City. It is the killing of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri, Oscar Grant in Oakland, California.
Well, with respect,
it just continues. It's past time to end the wave of terror against men of color in the U.S., where police play judge and jury. The punishment for a traffic violation should not be death.
And absolutely, and it's strong language. Do we have a second Jackson clip? This is also Reverend Jackson from that.
Think about it. 246 years of legal slavery. And then when we were set free, they left the slave masters in charge of the infrastructure. They proceeded from slavery to Jim Crow to apartheid and had this wave of lynchings to set the politics of terror.
Yeah. And he points out, between basically Reconstruction and recently, actually, I've got the numbers around here in one of my stacks. There have been thousands, numbers around 4,000 lynchings that have been essentially documentable over these years for the purposes of creating terror in the hearts and minds of people of color in this country, pure and simple. And that some police, who have historically been the protectors of basically white power, white privilege, and the established order of things, which in this country has always been white power, white privilege. In fact, male white power, white privilege, and male privilege. That as the defenders of that, they feel that this is the way. This is the way. Running the apartheid, maintaining a certain level of terror. I remember Alan Greenspan, I've shared this with you many times, back in the 1970s or 80s when I had to be a little later than that, but when Greenspan was head of, he was interviewed by the Wall Street Journal, and he said that his job, as interest rates, if the economy heats up and wages start going up, they'd raise interest rates to cool the economy down. And he said that his job maintain a certain minimum level of worker insecurity so that workers would not ask for higher pay raises. Well, like the police in some places, particularly these bedroom communities, these transitional communities, feel that their job is to maintain a certain level of terror. Now, here's what the police officer said when he was confronted by the BBC with what Reverend Jackson said.
The problem in a nutshell is that when you have a case like this and a black man is killed by a white police, the same act, the woodwork, the racial racketeers of America, Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, they line up and they make matters worse. We're talking about the racial racketeers of America that come out of the woodwork.
Okay, just very briefly, sir, because we're short for time.
There were 4 black lives killed within 6 days. There was no outrage from the administration. Where was the liberal media? Why haven't we heard from Jackson, Sharpton, Holder, Obama? Why? Because the cops were black. 4 black cops killed within 6 days. So you can't just take these things and throw names out and decorate it and get everybody all charged up. And that's what Jackson does.
Right. So out of the woodwork, right? Or is this like from behind the wood pile? I mean, and if you remember the old colloquialism, which I'm not going to repeat on the radio, and race hustlers, really? I mean, this is like Fox News, Sean Hannity, or Glenn Beck, or I don't know who. I mean, it's Michael said what. This is right wing talking points on steroids. And yes, 4 black police officers were killed in 6 days. Larry Elder, a black conservative, wrote about it back in March, and it repopulated all over the internet. But they weren't killed because they were black. They were killed because they were police officers. It's literally the completely different thing. I mean, yeah, criminals kill cops, and we want to minimize that. But police officers, that's part of their job description. Now, I think that we should have higher standards for police officers in this country, and we should have much higher pay for police officers in this country. Let's clean this up. But that's really a secondary argument about the structural nature of this country. If you grew up black in this country, did you grow up in a terrorist state? Was that your sense of it?